Hello students and welcome to the lecture. So students, as we know that we are covering the parliament and these are the topics that we have scheduled for the discussion under this particular series, like starting with the introduction part, thereafter the organization of parliament, composition of two houses, system of elections to Lok Sabha, duration of two houses, membership of parliament, presiding officers of parliament, leaders in parliament, sessions of parliament, devices of parliamentary proceedings, legislative process in parliament, joint sitting of two houses, the budget in parliament, the multifunctional role of parliament, ineffectiveness of parliamentary control, the position of Rajya Sabha, the parliamentary privileges and the sovereignty of the parliament. Okay. And if we talk about the topics that we have covered so far, introduction part, organization of parliament, composition of two houses, system of elections to Lok Sabha, duration of two houses, membership of parliament, presiding officers of parliament, leaders in parliament, the sessions of parliament, devices of parliamentary proceedings. And the topic on which we have been discussing is the legislative procedure in parliament. And the remaining topics are the joint sitting of two houses, budget in parliament, multifunction role of parliament, ineffectiveness of parliamentary control, position of Rajya Sabha, parliamentary privileges, and the sovereignty of the parliament. Okay, so this is the picture that we have created so far altogether. So basically, we will start from where we had left in the previous one. Okay. So basically, in the previous lecture, we had started with the ordinary bill, right? And we had discussed the ordinary bill having the 5 stages, right? To pass before becoming legislation. The first 2 stages, the first stage and the second stage is the first reading and second reading we had covered. Now we are going to start with the third reading. I hope that you all revise the previous ones. It means the first reading and the second reading in the well enough manner. Because if you haven't revised them, then you won't be able to recognize the facts and figures for a longer duration. Okay, because the facts and figures are in, you can say, deep explanation. So that's why they required a regular revision. Okay, so if we talk about the third reading, okay, at this stage, the debate is confined to the acceptance or rejection of the bill. Because if we talk about the first two, it means if we talk about the first reading, then we had discussed in the first reading, only the introduction part is there, right? Only introduction happens here. There is no votes and there is no debating on it. Okay, only the introduction is there. Thereafter, if we talk about the second reading, okay, if we talk about the second reading, what we had discussed, like in the second reading, basically the committee scrutinization and examination is there. Okay, committee scrutinization, examination in there. And if we talk about the third reading, okay, so here we have seen the third reading. Basically, acceptance or rejection happens here. Okay, in the second reading, we had discussed like whenever the committee examines it, so there are chances that the committee might be pass the bill as it is or might be introduce some amendments. Okay, and if the committee itself did not introduce any amendment or made any changes, then the member could made it. Okay, and if the changes accepted, then this becomes the part of the bill. Okay, this is the thing. So before going further, let me ask you one simple question. And the question is, what stages comprised in first reading? What stages comprised in first reading? That is the first question. Okay. So for this, you have 30 seconds to think an answer. Then I will give you the answer and your time starts now. Just think about it. We had already discussed it. Okay. The 10 seconds have been passed off. Last 20 is remaining. All right. Last 10 seconds are remaining. Okay. The time's up. So first reading comprises the two stages. The first stage is introduction of the bill. Okay. Second stage is publishing it in Gazette of India. Okay. So these are the two stages which is comprised in the first reading. All right. Now let's move with the third reading. So as we had discussed that basically at this stage, the debate is confined to the acceptance or rejection of the bill as a whole and no amendments are allowed. Okay. It means the any amendment which is to be there, this should be done in the second reading itself. Okay. Either by the committee or by the members. As the general principles underlying the bills have already been scrutinized during the stage of second reading. Okay. And we had seen that the provisions could be amended of the bill, but the principles could not be changed. Why? Because we had seen that basically the principles are the one which provides for the provisions. Okay. So if the principles will change, so the entire bill and the purpose for which the bill was introduced that got damaged. To prevent this kind of damage, only the amendment is allowed in the provisions. And the principles are not subject to change or amendment. Got it? If the majority of members present and voting accept the bill is regarded as passed by the House. Like we had seen in India, there is a majority basis. Okay. So if the majority of the people accepts the bill, okay, then the bill will considered as passed by the House. Thereafter, the bill is authenticated by the presiding officer of the House and transmitted to the second House for consideration approval. Okay. It means that at third reading, if the bill got accepted, then basically the acceptance will be authenticated by whom? The presiding officer of the House. He will authenticate it that yes, the bill has been passed in our House, and thus the bill would be transferred to the second House. Okay. For the consideration and approval to discuss the things and then approve the bill. A bill is deemed to have been passed by the parliament only when both the houses have agreed to it, either with or without amendments. Okay. It means that even if the bill passed by Lok Sabha or by Rajya Sabha, but later got failed, either in Rajya Sabha in the case of Lok Sabha or in Rajya Sabha in the case of, in Lok Sabha in the case of Rajya Sabha or Rajya Sabha in the case of Lok Sabha. Okay. So the bill would be declared as a fail or rejected. Okay. It means If the bill is to be passed for the legislature, the bill must be passed by both the houses. Okay, and it's you can say totally liberalized whether the house wants to make the amendment or not. If the house approves for the amendments would be made. If the house the you can say does not approves for the amendments would not be made. Okay. Thereafter, the fourth is a bill in the second house. Okay, it means the third stage is confined within the same house. First reading, first reading means the introduction. Second reading means the scrutinization. Third reading means the voting, and the fourth is the bill in the second house. It means the bill have been passed by the first house and now it is under second house. In the second house also, the bill passes through all three stages. That is, first reading means the introduction of the house or the introduction of the bill by the title, the objectives and principles. Second reading, the committee of the house will scrutinize the bill. All right. Third reading, after the scrutinization, there are chances might be the amendments are there and there are chances might be the amendments are not there. Okay. And so with or without amendments, the bill would be presented for voting in the third reading. All right. So there are four alternatives before this house. This is the second house. It means the bill has already passed in the first house and now it's on the second house. So what are the four alternatives the second house will have? If we discuss them, so we can say the first, there are chances like it may pass the bill as sent by the first house without any amendments. Okay. It means that if the bill passed with the XYZ provisions from the first house. Okay. So there are chances even the second house will pass it as it is. It means with XYZ provisions. Okay. Thereafter, second is it may pass the bill with amendments and return it to the first house for the reconsideration. It means that like the first house pass it in this format, but the second house feels that there are some amendments which are needed. So what happened? Instead of XYZ, they made it as X1, Y, and Z1. It means the X and the Z provisions have been amended. Then what will happen? This bill will again send to the first house from where it had been passed in the form of XYZ. So that the house which had passed it earlier would consider on the provisions of X1 and Z1. The amendments, like how the amendments were made and why these amendments are made. Okay. Thereafter, it may reject the bill altogether. Okay. It means it is not necessary if the bill has been passed by the first house. The bill must be passed by the second house. This is not compulsory, not necessary. Okay. So it's totally depend upon the second house whether they want to pass it or fail it. If they want to fail it, so the entire bill would be failed. It may not take any action and thus keep the bill pending. Okay. It means that the XYZ bill, okay, sent to the second house. Okay. And the second house is required to vote. Okay. Discuss and pass it. But it's totally depend upon second house whether they want to discuss it or then they keep it pending. Okay. So there are four alternatives. First is they pass the bill as it is. Second is they pass the bill with some amendments. And if they do this, then the amended bill will go back to the previous house from where it had been passed first. Okay. So that that particular house could reconsider the amendments and then pass it again. Third stage is might be the bill got rejected by the second house. And the fourth is that the second house, it's not spending. Okay. They are not responding whether they want to accept it or reject it. They are just keeping it for a long duration. Okay. So there are chances for it. So remember, if the second house passes the bill without any amendments, okay, or the first house accepts the amendment suggested by the second house. So there are two chances. Like first, the second house where the bill was sent. The house, you can say, accepted the bill as it is. There is no changes, there is no amendments made by the second house. First case. Second case, suppose if the second house where the bill had been sent, they made several amendments and changes. And those amendments and changes basically accepted by the first house. Okay. Then the bill is deemed to have been passed by both the houses and the same is sent to the president for his assent. Okay. So you can say, if we take the first case, suppose if this is the bill contains X, Y, Z, and for example, the bill was passed by the Lok Sabha, then the bill will be sent to the Rajya Sabha with X, Y, and Z. Okay. And if the Rajya Sabha also passed it, okay, it means that the provisions XYZ remain as it is. Then the bill will be forward for the president's consideration. Okay, that is the first case presented here. If we take the second case, so we can say, suppose this is the bill contains X, Y, and Z provisions, and the bill passed by the Lok Sabha, then went to the Rajya Sabha, right? Here, the Rajya Sabha made the amendments in X, Y, and Z, like X1, Z1. Then we had discussed the bill would given back to the original house where it had been passed for the first time. Okay, then what will happen? The bill be passed by the Lok Sabha, the originated house, with X1 and Z1 amendments. Okay, so the bill again will not go to the Rajya Sabha. Why? Because Rajya Sabha was the house which had made the amendments, and the Lok Sabha is the house which had approved the amendment. So the bill will directly goes for the president's consideration or consent. Or consent here also. Got it? So these are the chances. Thereafter, on the other hand, if the first house rejects the amendments suggested by the second house, or the second house rejects the bill altogether, or the second house does not take any action for up to 6 months, a deadlock is deemed to have been taken place. Okay. For example, if we just take these cases, so the first case is like, let's understand it with the diagram. X, Y, Z provisions have been passed from the Rajya Sabha. Okay. Then the bill sent for the Lok Sabha, and the Lok Sabha amended the two provisions of it, the Y and the Z provisions. Then what will happen? The bill will again go to the Rajya Sabha for the approval. But the Rajya Sabha said that the Y1, Z1 are the amendments which are not accepted. It means that the amendments rejected. It is the first case. Second case, if we take, so we can say, suppose this is the bill X, Y, Z passed in the Rajya Sabha. Okay, then what will happen? The bill will send to the Lok Sabha. Okay, and in such case, what happened? Like the Lok Sabha neither made any amendments nor accepted the bill. It means bill got rejected. Okay. Now let's take the third case. XYZ bill has been passed by the Rajya Sabha. Okay. Provides to the Lok Sabha. Okay. But then the Lok Sabha did not taking any action on it. Okay. And you can say they kept the bill for more than 6 months. So if any of such conditions happen, amendments to the bill got rejected by the originated house, the bill altogether rejected by the second house, the second house keeps the bill for more than 6 months. If any of such cases happen, so this would be considered as an deadlock between the houses. Okay. So to resolve the deadlock, as we had discussed, basically it is the power of president that he can summon a joint sitting of two houses. Okay. So if this is so here I'm going to ask you one simple question. Okay. Tell me that the joint sitting of two houses is the provision that we had brought it from some constitution. So what is the constitution from where we had brought the joint sitting of two houses? For this, you have 30 seconds to think and answer. Then I will give you the answer, and thus your time starts now. Just think about it. We had already discussed it, so it should not take more time, and the answer must be not inaccurate. Okay. The 10 seconds have been passed off. Last 20s are remaining. Just think about it. Last 10 seconds are remaining. All right, the time's up. So basically, we had borrowed from the Australian Constitution, the joint sitting of two houses. Okay. If the majority of members present and voting, but remember, it is not from the single house. It is from both the houses, the Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. Okay. So if the majority of the houses present and voting in the joint sitting approves the bill is deemed to have been passed by both the houses. Okay. Doesn't matter whether the bill had been rejected by the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. Okay. If in the joint sitting, majority of the members belonging to either of the houses passes the bill is approved. Approves the bill is deemed to be passed by both the houses and then goes for the president consideration or president consent. Got it? The fifth and the last stage is the assent of the bill. Okay. So every bill after being passed by both the houses of parliament, okay, whether with amendments, without amendments, or during the joint sitting, whatever the situation is, okay. So you can say either singly. Singly means first the Lok Sabha passed, then the second house means the Rajya Sabha passed, or you can say first the Rajya Sabha passed, then the Lok Sabha passed. So this is known as a singly. Joint sitting means first house passed the bill, but second house rejected the bill. Or you can say first house passed the bill, second house introduced some amendments, and the amendments were rejected by the first house. Third case is when the first house passed the bill, the second house did not respond to the bill and keep it for the 6 months. Okay. So if any of such situation hears or happens, then this is known as the deadlock situations. Okay, so to counter this, joint sitting is required. It's presented to the president for his assent. All right. So there are three alternatives before the president. So you can say the president could exercises the three alternatives with this regard. First is that there are chances he may give his assent to the bill, or you can say approved the bill and its provisions. It is the first case. Second case, he may withhold his assent to the bill. What does it mean? It means that the president, you can say, disapproved the bill and its provision. This is also known as rejected the bill. The third case is that he may return the bill for the reconsideration of the House. It means that might be some, you can say, the amendments the president proposed, not made. Remember, he may proposed it. Okay. And then for the reconsideration of the houses, he may send the bill. All right. So there are chances. Most of the times, I have seen the students who say that the president made the amendments. This is the wrong statement. Why? Because always remembers the amendments having a defined procedure as per constitutional article 368. All right. And remember, no single entity of legislature could make amendments by its own. Okay. So remember this, the amendments having a defined procedure as per constitutional article 368. So article 368 states for the two things, that is a special majority to pass the constitutional amendment bill, and thereafter second one is a special majority and rectification of half of the states. Okay. And the provisions to amend it, which lies outside the scope of article 368, they could be amended by using the simple majority. Okay. But still, they require to be passed by both the houses of parliament. All right. And remember, only the Parliament of India having the power to introduce the amendments in the constitution. Okay. No, you can say state legislature could amend the constitution. Okay. Only the parliament could do it. Okay. This is the thing. So no single entity of legislature could make the amendment by its own. And if we talk about the president, then he is not the house or not a collective body, but he is individual entity or single entity. So as per the statement, he is alone could not make the amendments. So remember, president could only purpose the changes or amendments he could not make amendments. This statement is valid. This statement is invalid. Okay. So that is the thing. Like the president may retain the bill after proposing some amendments for the reconsideration of the houses. Okay. So these are all the 5 stages. So students, basically in this lecture, we have finished till here. In the next lecture, we would continue from here. Till then, just revise the facts and figures that all we have discussed in this lecture. Be ready for the another lecture. With this note, let's end this lecture, and what we say thank you.